was like,
yeah,
I finally got this.
Like,
yeah, I finally got this.
Now we're live. We're live.
All
As
right.
we're like, the very
Messing with
serious
our hair.
feminists are doing our hair first. All right. What is up, everyone? I am joined today by the lovely Jules. And so I came across you through finding Ray's channel, who's Jules' husband, who is a detransitioner. And I've been following your Twitter, and it's like everything you say, it's like it could have been like coming out of my own experience. And it's like, so the experience that we're both going through lately is kind of like a shifting of perspectives around issues pertaining to feminism, leftism, particularly gender is like the hot button issue right now. But if you want to start, maybe just talk about what inspired you to speak out and what's been on your mind lately.
Yeah. Well, I am like same-sex attracted or bisexual. And so when I was younger, I was kind of one of those people, like, I feel like there are more people nowadays who feel like, oh, I can like come out because I want to and it sounds great. But I was like one of those people who's just like, I cannot avoid coming out. Like, I have to. Like, I keep falling in love with women. I can't deny it anymore. Like, all my crushes. And I was like, I don't want to. It sounds scary, but I have to do it. You know, that person. So, and then at the same time as I was like coming to terms with that and starting to try and be brave and tell people, it was like, bam, in your face, like gender. Like, you have to figure out gender at the same time as your sexuality. And I was like, oh my God, this is so complicated. I have to like focus on it and figure it out because I'm like a gender non-conforming female.
Yeah.
So it really like messed me up. I was like, this speaks to me and I don't know. Am I gender non-conforming woman? Am I not? Am I like trans in some way? Like, so I really grappled with that for a long time. And now after the fact, I feel like it was sort of destructive to just be ruminating about it and like not going out and doing stuff and making friends and whatnot with my time. Or I actually
it's just constant like examining the self, what like it like finding these little micro labels, put on these micro features of your personality, and it gets to a psychotic place pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was like watching YouTube and like all these transitioners were being like, this is my voice one day on T, this is my voice 1 week on T, and I was like,
I've been watching all this like the whole time. I've always been fascinated from like just from multiple layers, but as someone who's involved in like activism, feminism, and had like a lot of trans friends, but beyond that, I've always just had a fascination with what the mechanics of changing sex, like what you're actually doing, how much you can approximate physically to look like the other sex. I always just find it interesting, just, you know, on that level. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I was on the level of like, is this what I want to do? And if so, like, how will it go? Like, am I brave enough to do it? And will I like trying to figure out, like, is this going to be right for me and stuff? So I spent a long time in that sort of like phase of like, am I or am I not going to do this? Because I'm also autistic, so I didn't know it at the time, but like change, like
autistic,
I could tell,
gender non-conforming lesbian. You were like prime target for that kind of
exactly. It's like experience. All the
like everything that's like a comorbidity that you find with like people who are identified as trans. Like you got it.
Yeah, exactly. So at the time, I didn't know I was autistic, but I did like it was obvious that like change was hard for me. And like I wasn't just like super adventurous to like jump in and try new things and then like adapt and change again and change again and change again. So if I was gonna change it, like that was so scary. It was so like, do I really have to try it? And so I was stuck.
Were
in
you
that
questioning
phase for a while.
like? And sorry if I interject. I just
go ahead.
Chaos energy, but were you struggling? Like at any point, did you think that you might be like identify as a trans man? Did you ever go there, or were you just okay? So you were like considering the full like process.
And I like kind of was like, well, what if I'm not like really a traditional like man like if being a trans man wouldn't feel totally right for me. But there weren't that many non-binary people then because it was like the late 2000s.
And that's when it started. Like I first came across like a non-binary person, like because it was like in the punk scene pretty early on, because you know it's where like alternative people end up. So
so I was like, you know, people don't even know about they, them, and non-binary. Like I would have to like constantly be trying to teach people about they, them pronouns. And I would just stand out so much. And it would be like a struggle every day to like, whether I speak up for myself and say they, them, not she, her, or like they, them, not he, him, like every day or not. And I was like, I personally, I hated to stand out and like have people be talking about me and thinking about me when I like wasn't necessarily part of the conversation. I was like, don't talk about me, don't think about me, I don't want to stick out.
Right, you didn't want to like be perceived. That's like a common thing.
Yeah, so I was like, either I'm gonna like try and like be okay as I am and like stop worrying about this, or I will like try the binary transition, because then I can kind of like fit in and blend in at some point once that transition has happened enough.
Yeah.
And so I tried the binary transition. I didn't do medical, but I like flipped a switch. Like I cut my hair off, did new name, new pronouns, like started binding, wearing men's clothes, and was like, everyone, please just call me this name and these pronouns and I'm a man. And it was like so hard. Like, and it didn't help me with like mental or physical health. Like I didn't do better. Because it's already hard to ask everyone like, please perceive me differently. And there weren't that many like trans people around. Like I was mostly like the trailblazer for most of the people and institutions and communities in my life. So it's like pretty big request to ask people to do that. So it sticks in their mind like this one person is doing this thing. Not like, oh, so many people are doing it. It was like this one person's doing this thing and has asked something of me that feels unnatural and I have to try. And
yeah, I definitely kind of felt that way. Like when people started identifying as non-binary, I've always been like open-minded. And if someone has an experience I don't understand, I generally will try to take their word at it, because I have plenty of experiences that people don't understand. So I get that. But it definitely was a challenge incorporating they, them pronouns. Like now it's actually quite easy for me just because over the years I've been indoctrinated. But like, I remember at the beginning it made the interaction feel unnatural, because I was constantly monitoring to make sure I said the right name, the right pronoun. And it just always, it felt like I couldn't really be in the moment with the person to a degree.
Yeah. I didn't want to like feel that like separation from the people, but I did know that like something felt wrong about my life. Like I was struggling with like mental health or emotional, whatever, psychological. And I was like, this could be it. This could fix it. And it was not it. It did not fix it.
So how old are you when you started?
I was in undergrad. I was like a regular undergrad age, like just after high school, I went straight to undergrad college and I like lived on the campus and everything. And it was like not the same state I was from or anything. So,
this is your like in like late teens, early 20s kind of age group. And did you go to like a liberal college, or was it like, was it similar to how campuses are today, or was it like less so like,
it was a small liberal arts college, so there was a fair amount of activism and like leftist and liberal people there. So like fair amount of politically active people, like a fair amount of like protesting and movements and petitions to sign and things to learn about, like become aware of this injustice and that injustice and sign the petition and go to the protest. And like I felt that pressure too. It was like I don't have enough time in the day to like feel like I'm contributing properly to like solve all these problems with the world. Like how do I I was like, I always felt bad. Like I should go to another thing or sign another thing or like speak up or learn more. It was so hard. Did you ever go through that?
I actually, absolutely. And I always have struggled to function in a lot of ways. So it's like, I would like, if I didn't sleep all night or for a couple days or was going psychotic or like whatever's going on in my life, like if I couldn't make it to a protest or a benefit show or these things that were happening, it made me feel like I'm not a good activist, or like, especially like as a white person in the community, because you're always like trying to do more, like to compensate, like, or like, I don't know, you want to be the person putting in the hard work or to seem like that person,
Yeah. It's like if you're already privileged in some way, then people assume like you have all this time and energy to give.
Yeah.
Whereas like you can be privileged in some ways and be struggling in other ways, not even like ways that are like based on systemic oppression necessarily, but like I had mental health and physical health struggles. Like I was doing the same thing. Like some nights I wouldn't sleep. And I'd be like, do I just leave my room in the morning and act like I'm fine and go to all the things, or what? Like,
it's a lot to take on. I mean, just living life, just fucking living life with no job, no college, anything, to me is a struggle. Just the waking up, all those things you do as a person, I profoundly struggle with. So when you throw in, you know, work, social life, family, friends, and then on top of that, you have to save the fucking world every day.
Yeah, it felt like so much pressure, like even just internally. And I don't think I respond well to that. Like I felt like this like guilt and pressure, and like it was like, how do I balance all of this? Like how do I? Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, being a social justice person. Yeah, that was tough. It was tough.
Yeah, and I definitely like internalized. I felt like I was suffering more during that period, and suffering that was creating in my own mind. So like now if I walk down the street and a guy yells like nice butt or whatever, like I don't care. It doesn't really bother me unless I feel like they're a threat or like they're close to me.
Yeah.
Harassment can get very scary. It happens to me all the time, but like I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah.
But say it's like 15 years ago, I would have perceived it as like another rapist who hates me and wants to kill me. Look, oh, now I'm triggered about this past thing that happened. Everywhere I go, I can't even walk down the street without being targeted for being a woman. Like, and then I go home and I'm expected to do the dishes and like, you know, it's, I'm psyching myself the fuck out.
Yeah.
And where was that bringing me?
Yeah.
Nowhere. I ended up a drug addict. My life got destroyed, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't working. So that's why I'm trying to find a new way, you know, to like be productive, like, and I do want to have a positive impact on the world, but just finding
there has to be a balance somehow, and there has to be like some sort of way to like tell ourselves like we're a good person even if we're like in a stasis, like even if we're sitting still and we didn't do any particular thing that day, we're still a good person. We're not like bad for not going and doing a thing. Like it's okay, like we still love ourselves, we still like, because otherwise like you're bringing yourself down, like your internal psychology is like bringing yourself down, and then you can't do as much stuff. So even if you care about all of it, you're like also
you're literally
crippled by caring. You're like crippled by caring. Like I care so much that I'm freaking out.
Well, I think it's like that reflects like the black and white thinking that's so like prevalent, because like when you view people as good or bad and you're constantly categorizing people as good or bad, you reflect that back onto yourself, these same standards. And you never are viewing like the biggest profound change for me and how I approach other people is I'm seeing them as whole people with completely individual experiences that, you know, that they have insight that I don't have, and that's okay. And we can disagree. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. You, like most people, are doing their best. They mean well. And it's just, that mentality, it's just counterproductive in every quantifiable way. To any meaningful goal. So it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
It's like it can push people to want to be more active, but they can also like either burn themselves out or like have like this troubled psyche, like I'm not doing enough, everyone's suffering, like this world's not okay, like we have so many enemies, like look at this person doing bad things, look at that person doing bad things. I don't even want to go to dinner with my aunt because she said something mean once about a certain type of person. Like it's so much conflict, like us
there's
versus
so much
them.
Just like this narrative that like they hate you,
exactly,
they want to kill you. And I'm sorry, it really, how is it that much different than what fucking Nick Fuentes does? Like, it's all about they're after us. They, who is it? Is it the Jews? Is it the women? Is it the fucking trans people? Is it the feminists? It's always they. Guess what? Nobody's fucking after you in your fucking living room, you know? Like, chill out.
I had someone on Twitter like tell me like they didn't even know who I was, and they were like, people like you are so bad or something. And I was like me, what? Who am I? Or she said like, you people. And I was like, what people? And I was like, I'm one person. I know a lot of other people, but I'm not those people. So what people? What are you mad about? Like,
I was like arguing with some incels from like an incel like fan page thing. And it's like, I'll say something like totally kind and like normal. And then the response is like, go, hey, fentanyl bitch, I want you to go overdose and die.
Oh my god, the internet is terrible.
It's like, what? Terrible. They go straight there. And luckily, I'm a bad bitch, and I've been on the internet for a minute. So I actually welcome all the harassment and hate. It's good for the channel, and I don't get enough of it, honestly.
Nice.
But it's still like, just that mentality. You see it all over the place in social justice and in
Yeah.
like the more reactionary communities of just
Yeah.
like this constant arguing with a figure of your imagination and getting so
Yeah.
mad and so upset over imaginary fucking things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like I kind of felt bad for the other person who
That's
didn't
how you
she didn't know who she was talking to. She didn't really know much about me. She actually followed me because I'm sort of like critical of gender identity ideology, and so is she. And
Yeah.
that's probably why she followed me. But she thought I was like this total like left queer, like trans, like BLM, like anything that she could demonize that she didn't relate to. She thought I was like all of that embodied in a person just because I commented one thing, like knowing something about the BLM movement.
Well, that's how you're expected to be also in social justice movements is you have to have that uniformity of opinion on every single topic.
You have to, it has to be totalizing. You can't like deviate. Yeah.
Literally. Like people just don't know what to think for themselves and they respect and look up to their thought leaders who they assume are doing the research.
Yeah.
But they're fucking not. They have their own motives for revving people up on the internet. It's so profitable to get people revved up. Like
yeah.
It's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, it's totalizing and there's so much pressure. Like if I don't believe it's not just if I don't believe the same thing as someone. It's like if I'm not actively talking about like Palestine every day, then I must be a bad person. And if I'm not,
and these people are like on fucking Instagram in whatever suburban town America, make sure you're tweeting about Palestine. That's really gonna fucking help them.
Oh my god, I'm barely got my life together. Like, God.
It's so frustrating. It's like,
yeah.
For me, honestly, I'm a twisted fuck. So I actually kind of enjoy like the back and forth and like the fight. I get like a kick. I've always, since I was little, just loved arguing. I love being right. Like now I'm trying to take my stubbornness and funnel it towards maybe something positive, but I'm still trying to find where that funnel is headed. Like,
yeah, it's hard. Like having, like, I feel like I was sort of like duped. Like I believed whatever I was like told was the like best, like most empathetic thing to do. Like all the woke stuff, all the SJW social justice stuff, like all the causes, support all the oppressed people. Like don't think anything that might hurt an oppressed person. Like don't even analyze the argument. Don't even listen to someone who said something like that disagrees.
Yeah, no,
with,
because
like,
they're all evil and want you dead.
Yeah. And I feel like I was like duped. Like I didn't let myself have freedom of thought because like I felt like pressured, and I took that and was like, okay, like this is the good thing to do. If I'm the good person, I listen and I think these things and I work on these causes. And now it's like, it's hard to know, like if you're trying to funnel yourself towards a new, like positive thing, it's hard to know, like trust yourself, like be like, oh, I found the right thing and I'm going to say the right thing and do the right thing. And I'm not being like manipulated or I'm not being too extreme. And
this is what I mean. You literally are in my fucking head because I struggle with that so much of like, and for years I started having doubts about certain narratives. And I truly believed in myself. That's my white supremacy internalized popping up. That's my internalized transphobia popping up. So I would, stamp out these thoughts before they developed into any kind of nuanced or complex human opinion that actually reflects reality. God forbid.
Yeah. And then there's the aspect of like being like gay or bi. Like you want to be able to like socialize with other people who get that about you. But a lot of them are the people who are like, you have to believe these exact things and do these exact things, or we don't want you at our like drag show or at our bar.
I've been at so many events where people were kicked out for very minor things. Like once I was playing a show and someone was selling records at the show, and one of the records was a band that had put out one album. The band was Screwdriver. They went on to be a racist band, but their first album wasn't racist because it was all different members. Whatever. Fucking stupid. It's a random record some guy is selling. And since I was playing the show instead of the show, a couple people came up to me to ask him to leave. And
oh my gosh.
I couldn't make myself do it. I think I asked a man to do it or something. Like so embarrassing that like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Microscopic non-issues. The reaction is physical fucking removal and shunning.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
does
it
it
is.
go from 0 to 100 like that? You
Yeah.
know, there should be like, what I think we should maybe talk about in progressive spaces is maybe like steps of accountability. Like, oh, someone said something that I find problematic. Maybe the first step is let's talk privately. And then like, there should be like it shouldn't go to shunning right away.
Yeah.
You know, like it also, there's just so few people who are actually like Nazis and fascists in America, but it's like this boogeyman that's hiding under every blanket to like a large segment of the left that it feels like is just absolutely has been dominating the convo. So that's why my hope, I'm just putting out a bet that there's other people who feel like us, and I'm hoping like more people will pop up. And I feel like I'm seeing that, honestly. I really do.
Yeah. It's hard. Like, I think the reason that I can speak up now is that I feel secure in my like home life and like my main relationship now that I have like a partnership that feels like it's definitely long-term and stable. I'm just like, okay, I'm not out on the dating scene in the queer community. Like, I don't have to worry about them like all talking about me having the wrong opinion or action or saying the wrong word. Like, so I can probably handle whatever people say or do, you know? But like, there's a lot of people out there who are still trying to date, or they're still trying to like figure out where they're going to live or what job, or, you know, like find.
They need that community.
Security.
It's a lifeline to people. So I don't ever want to judge people for going along with certain things out of fear, because the consequences for speaking out very real. Like, just anything you said right now, like nothing has been problematic, but I know like 15 years ago, like if you'd said anything just remotely critical about like any trans person ever, you would have been asked to leave. You would have been physically fucking removed.
15 years ago, like, I was trans.
I guess then that would have changed things. Probably you'd get some coverage from that, but the point is,
no, like, not even like people
who are allies, and actually trans people get it the fucking hardest. Like,
people canceled and bullied ContraPoints.
So hard.
I looked into why. It's because she does these long videos and she puts like the voice actors
of Buck Angel.
She called Buck Angel and said, "Will you do like a 20-second like reading a line for audio for me for this video?" And they said, like, "Why would you platform Buck Angel?" Like, first of all, she told him what to read. It was a quote.
First of all, show some fucking respect for like the person who paved the way for your existence at all. Buck has been out there doing advocacy for many years.
Buck
years. They have no
the only FTM
respect.
role model I knew of that was like famous when I was like coming out.
There was no one else.
He was it. Like, there was like no one that famous. Like, he was the number one most well known.
Of him because of what? His stance on like puberty blockers, like or like these made up rumors that I've looked into, and it's just people trying to find anything that makes them
wasn't
look
even
bad.
Buck they went after. They bullied ContraPoints, Natalie Wynn, like off of Twitter,
off the fucking internet. Like,
they did.
She's been not the same since all that shit went down. Honestly, like I worry about her genuinely.
Yeah. I hope her like personal life is okay, because like she seems very like wary of going on the internet at all. And
there's the level of harassment that she gets. I cannot comprehend, and especially
I don't even like agree with a lot of stuff she says anymore, and I still feel like bad about it. Like, I still wouldn't be like, you should bully her off of Twitter, like where she feels upset inside. Like, no. Like, especially she didn't even say or do anything. She had Buck say, quote, a line that it was written already. It wasn't even Buck like, "Oh, come on my channel, talk about your ideas." She didn't even do that.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Exactly. Not even like she actually like platformed. It was his voice, which no one would even know unless they saw the fucking credits. Like,
it's I didn't find like another reason why everyone was bullying and canceling her. Like, I think that was
she'll like occasionally tweet something like,
"Oh yeah, there were a couple tweets
like hetero, homosexual, or like these types of contrary labels that don't make sense."
I think they called her trans medicalist, which like
that too. Which she's like barely like
policing people's thoughts in that way. It's so counterproductive. Like, let alone like if you're set on disagreeing with trans medicalism forever, like you still don't have to tell those people like you can't say it and you can't believe it and you can't say it and you can't be present in the same room as me. Like, you're never gonna convince the trans medicalists of your point if you don't let them talk or talk to you.
Exactly. Like, and you know what? This is why everyone is so radicalized, is because of this intense separation that's happened and intense lack of interaction. And it gets so easy. Like, I've even fallen into like radicalizing, like we were talking about Christianity briefly, but like I've fallen into those like holes where I'm like isolated and just go down a rabbit hole. And I'm somewhat impressionable, unfortunately. So I
think I am too.
Kind of internalize it. Like, and then next thing I know, I'm like, I don't know. It's really easy to get lost in the internet and information. And
it's hard to be the heterodox or the dissenting voice in any group. Like, now that I'm not falling in line with like transgender ideology anymore, it's like if I go into another space and people are like saying like don't use proper pronouns, like you have to be completely hardline this other way, I'm like, is that right either? Like, I don't know if
I know I'm so
right. Like, it's so hard to be like, no. It's like pressure.
It really is. So you do have to pick and choose your battles in life. And like, I don't lie to people about my beliefs, but I'm not going to necessarily bring it up out of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't really talk about these issues except like privately with like my friends,
Yeah. It's hard. Like, I don't want to be confrontational, but I don't want to feel like I'm hiding something on purpose that they would feel betrayed by if I said it. Like, oh, we've been hanging out for weeks or months, and then all of a sudden they learn some belief. Like, oh, I'm so betrayed. Like, I never would have spent any time on you if I knew you thought that. Like, I don't want to do that to someone because they're right to say I don't want to be your friend. Like,
do you remember how that felt?
I don't want to yell at them about it either.
Do you remember how it felt? Like, because I'm trying to remember how it really felt when your perception shifted on someone, when you saw them as good, but then they say something and then they shift to bad. Yeah. And I remember my perception would almost be like, that's their mask slipping. And now we're just seeing a peek into a depth of secret hate, because that's, if someone says that little thing, I've been told that means they believe all these other things and they'll lie about it, like, so it really doesn't, it fucks the other person. And it's trippy to go through. Did you go through that?
With my health issues, I took a period of time where I wasn't socializing that much. I kind of got back out there.
Are we literally living the same life? Because I also had like physical health issues that isolated me for like many years. Like,
I kind of got back out there on like 2018 probably. And so I don't know, but I don't know how many times I was like present in person for that, or if I would just hear through the grapevine, like, hey, this person is now known to be like hateful in whatever way.
True, yeah. It wasn't always like a direct, but it was always, I mentioned on another stream, I had an instance where someone who I respected a lot and valued their opinions messaged me telling me another one of my friends was a white supremacist and I needed to unfriend her, basically. There was always this like behind the scenes like monitoring of who's still friends with who. Oh, did you like that picture of that person who once hung out with the person who said this thing I disagree with? Like, it's just this psychotic puritanicalism that becomes a sickness. It truly is sick, and it's hurting everyone it claims to help.
I was doing activism with like a fairly small group, and one of the guys was being called out by some like trans, like I think non-binary probably people on behalf of some other person, being like, you're bad. And he wasn't being called out like, hey, come over and talk to me about how you're bad and like fix the situation. Like, the guy would just pop up on any post like about our activism and be like, that one guy is bad. And I was like, okay, let me look into this. Am I like working with someone who like is bad? And I was like, all right, like person, like what's going on? Like, what are these person's claims about? Like, why is he like trying to destroy our activism based on something you did in the past? Like, what did you do? What happened? And he was like, I've been trying to sit down with that guy and his friend for like 2 years. Like, I want to talk about it. I asked them to pick the facilitator, the moderator, the counselor, the place, the situation, anything. And I told them I would be silent and they could talk to me. I told them I would say sorry. I told them we would work it out. I told them, like, you know, they can tell me, they can say anything to me they want and they won't do it. And I was like, oh my God. So he was trying to do like the whole like reparative justice thing that you hear about, where you're supposed to talk it out. And they wouldn't do it.
That's like, it makes the most sense. Even if I disagree with them, like, at least that would be the way to go about actually, like, because we can't just keep shunning, cancel people. Now all of a sudden you have this tiny freaky coalition of psychos, like, just terrorizing the world, basically. Like,
yeah. So I was shocked by that one. And then, and there's so many like groups of people that were trying to do activism that would split apart for like similar reasons. Like, so-and-so made a comment and now we don't trust that he like is not misogynist, or so-and-so made a comment, now we don't trust that he is like respectful of Jews, or like and so we had a
lot of sexual assault and like rape accusations that would happen all the time. And in the scenes I was in, I'm sure a lot of them were genuine, because there's a lot of actually really fucked up guys who hang around the scenes specifically to be around vulnerable women, you know? So when you're in activist music scenes, there are a lot of predatory men. So it wasn't bad, but then there would be these really, really, really gray situations where two people had sex, they were both drunk, like, and it just kept popping up, these people who I'm like, I just don't think they're a rapist, like, but what the fuck do I do? Because I would always have to pick sides. And there were times where I sided with the victim, and there were times when I sided with the perpetrator based on what I truly believed, you know? Like, but it was always gut-wrenching, and it always had consequences for me no matter what choice I made. And it was just like, just such added chaos. Like,
but it's like any group that seems to be functioning and working towards a goal, like an organizing activist, like community-based group, like, we're going out and doing this campaign, like, we're trying to, like, one group I know of was trying to like do like a union for tenants, like, so they can like talk back to their landlords and say like, we have rights. And like, groups like that would be vulnerable to this, making them just completely crumble and their project never be finished.
There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. There just has to.
And it's like inherent to the belief system. It's like the hardline ideology leads to this. Like, these people are oppressed, these people are privileged, or the oppressors, or whatever you say for them. And like, they don't even think about like multiple identities. Like, you're supposed to think about intersectionality or whatever. Like, this person's also disabled, this person's also like rich, like like, I don't know, like, it's more complicated. But like, it's like black and white, and then it's like, you have to side with this one side, and like, you can never speak to the other person ever again. And
it's really horrifying. And I've seen what it's done to people firsthand. I've been talking, you know, to people who are going through crises like this. I've seen a man balled up on the floor crying, you know, like, just really, it's funny because people say this activity is all online. It's not. It's not.
No,
but
it's not.
But it is kind of like contained in these like kind of niche spaces of like,
like, I live in or near like a fairly big city, so that's how you find that many people that are that far like left or whatever, like, who get together, and then this chaos happens. Like, but I don't know if I lived in like a rural area if I would run across it in person as much. I wonder.
True. It's also very much seems like a city thing, and I've always lived in like blue states and cities, so I've, you know, just been always around that. Like,
that's a lot.
I have hope because people change, and I feel like I'm noticing more people kind of waking up and realizing, like, because the thing is, smart, reasonable people doubt themselves more than anyone, you know, so they're less likely to speak up because they're more aware of their shortcomings, when people who aren't aware are the loudest, you know, and the most certain of their goals and objectives.
Yeah.
So it's like, it took me a while to trust my own perception and to trust my own ability to like research. It really took me a while to like feel solid enough that I could speak publicly. And I know I can still be wrong, but part of my thing is like, I want it to be okay to be wrong.
Yes.
You know, if I'm wrong,
so
then
important.
Yeah, I want to be an example of being wrong and changing, you know? So that's
exactly
been my general attitude towards it.
Yeah. We have, so I guess we didn't do like the rest of my story, but basically, I was really far left. I am still really far left, but I don't think I'm woke anymore. And I don't think wokeness and left are the same, especially if you're talking about like Marxism.
Absolutely not. There's plenty of people out there who are like more focused on like, you know, working class people and real issues and material conditions, and not just
that's me.
This super esoteric, like navel gazing bullshit. Like,
what's your internal sense of self versus like what's actually happening around you and with like your physical body and with other people and how are you interacting and like who has money and who has power and like the power dynamic thing. I don't think it has to be a toxic conversation, and it doesn't have to be a black and white thing either. So like my city has a lot of like segregation based on race, and like that's real. That's a material reality. Like it's not bad to think about and talk about. So it's like there's just a level to which things become so black and white and so totalizing that it gets terrible. Yeah,
it does. But so I'm curious, what was like your kind of awakening? What made you kind of start questioning?
So so Ray and I were like really close to a lot of trans and queer people. Like we're just part of that community. And Ray was still trans and everything then too, and he's detransitioned since then. But we got married. Like we started dating, he was already trans. We got married, he was still trans, and then like into the marriage, that's when he detransitioned. But yeah, we were really close, and this one person that we really like cared about, like I felt a lot of compassion towards and felt closeness with, like you could see that person's life like falling apart, and I was like, what is happening? Like what is the cause of this? Like how do I help? And with every indication of like what the cause was, it was basically like they were upset about like politicians talking about transgender healthcare and like limiting like access to puberty blockers or whatever. They were upset about it so much that like their entire life was affected. They like couldn't socialize properly. They were starting to treat me poorly. They were like, I don't have time to resolve any conflict with you, like, or even recognize that it exists. Like you got to go deal with it on your own. And I was like, that makes me feel like shit. Because like 2 days ago you were like, I love you so much, you're great. And I was like,
incredibly
if you
hurtful.
love me, you would do something to make sure you stay in a good relationship with me. And like, I'm trying to reach to you. And I was just like, what is happening to this person that's so distressing and taking all their energy and like their psyche, like they're troubled. You can see they're troubled, they're struggling, like all of that. And so it was like, you could tell like they wanted people to like go to the legislature and tell all the politicians to support like trans healthcare, like puberty blockers, everything, like all the way, 100%, all of it. And I was like, okay, fine. Well, I haven't like looked into this issue because I'm part of the queer community. So I don't want to like look into it and decide I disagree because that'd be really hard.
Because then you're forced to live with, I had the same thing where I almost didn't want to look too hard because then I know, and then I have to do something about it. Either I have to choose to lie or I have to tell people, and there's going to be consequences no matter what.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, this person seems like they really need me. Like I could be compassionate. I could overcome this barrier, this hurdle that's been stopping me from like researching this issue and then speaking up about it, like to the point where I'm like supportive of puberty blockers and calling like the legislature, politicians. I didn't know what I thought about like puberty blockers and all these different things that are, seem way more extreme. Like I was like, trans people should be treated well. Like they shouldn't be fired for being trans. Like I was like on that page, but
would be like, but so it's okay to pause children's puberty with side effects to them. You know?
So I was like, all right, fine. Like I feel like I can help them I can help other people, like I could rescue them from this like really troubled, like difficult state that they're in, where like seems like their life is crumbling and they can barely like stay afloat. It's like, all right, like they don't have time to like make our relationship be good. They don't have time to talk to me, but like I could help them be better and like feel better. I was like, all right, I'll go research it and find out what I think and find out like a strategy to talk to the politicians and tell them.
Uh-oh.
I researched it and I was like,
That
oh
was
no.
your first mistake. Uh-oh. What did
Yeah,
you do?
I was like, I disagree. Now I know. Now I looked into it and I know. So it was like out of like the kindness of my heart, I was like, okay, like I'll try to help you, trans person who is extremely upset.
Yeah.
And then I like started listening to like Gender a Wider Lens, those
Oh, yeah,
psychologists, Sasha and Stella. They're psychologists.
like every
they
episode of
like work directly with people. Like they try to be compassionate. They try to help people. They try not to be like, oh, if you're trans, like I'm not gonna be a good psychologist for you. Like they try to be real people, compassionate. And they were like having on like scientists and all these different people that like studied these things. And
I was just like consuming them, but it was always like I started consuming like podcasts and information that I was like embarrassed about because I knew how it would be perceived of like I literally had people like calling me alt-right and like it's just like perceived like, oh, I guess you're stupid, evil. It sucks to be perceived that way. Like
that's wild. Yeah.
I would feel guilty for watching those things, but like I would listen to more and more and just have to reckon with the fact that like what they're saying often makes sense. Doesn't mean I agree with everything, but like they're making a lot of good points. And I like the strategy of like compassion and like really just exploring it with the goal of helping people and advancing, you know, human well-being. Like,
so I found out that I don't agree with the puberty blocker stuff, and I just kept listening. I was like, well, what else can I learn? You know, so Gender a Wider Lens, I probably listened to like the first 100 episodes all in their entirety. All the way back to the beginning, all the way to at least episode 100. I probably didn't.
We probably have like a similar algorithm at this point, like to watch like all those.
And then, of course, I knew about detransitioners because I basically was one, even though I didn't medicalize. I was like a social detransitioner before that was really a thing. Before you could talk about it. Before you could find other people. So
what year was that?
The early 2010s. I detransitioned.
Wow.
Yeah, I was.
And how long did you identify as trans?
Probably like 3 to 4 years that I was like really intensely like, I don't think I'm like a woman, you know.
And were you like announcing it online and like engaging and like telling people, or was it more like just something you were going through and maybe you mentioned it, but like not, it wasn't like
it was like public. An internal struggle, like a semi-private struggle for a while at first, where my close friends or some other like queer people would like know about me like being like concerned about that for myself. And then eventually, like when I did decide to like completely transition, it was like all of a sudden the entire school knew, like my entire college campus, like it was like, I'm trans. Like I'm looking for a roommate or something like that, you know, like mass email to the whole college. Like,
oh my gosh.
And so yeah, so and then
so you're identifying as trans for 3 to 4 years, and then when you decided to like desist, what was that process like? Did you
I wasn't doing well at school, so I was gonna go home for a year anyway, either way. And I could tell my parents were really, really uncomfortable with me being trans. Like they didn't want to say anything. They would never say they were uncomfortable. They would never admit they were uncomfortable, but you can just sense it like in the air, you know?
Of course, because that's like has huge consequences. Like they could be concerned for your health. And then if they look into like the suicide rate, there's a lot of fear mongering around suicide that I feel so bad for. I watched a lot of interviews with like parents, and I've thought myself like how I would feel if someone like, I mean, I dealt with this with my ex, but like I'm thinking of like my little brother like transitioning and how I would truly feel like about that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel? Do you think medical transition benefits people ever? Or what's your stance on that?
It's a
Because I'm still
complicated
figuring out
thing.
mine. I would broadly say that it appears that for whatever reason, there's people who transition and seem to be doing well in life, and I'm very happy for them, and I'll respect whatever pronouns.
Yeah.
Other people I see transition, and it doesn't seem to really be making their life better. It seems to like they're struggling more in some ways. Like,
Yeah.
so no matter what, I'm supportive. Use whatever pronouns, but internally, I do have concerns when I see people going down a path that I am not seeing a happy outcome. It just seems like a fixation, like almost just body dysmorphia, just like a constant picking at your appearance, you know?
Yeah, I met this trans woman who was already super beautiful and feminine and just like fit in, like didn't stand out and seemed like she should be fine. And it turns out she's like desperately pursuing like further surgeries, like more facial feminization, more this, more that, and getting complications from the surgeries, and like being at home, like being like upset because they have a complication, like their quality of life went way down. And then also like having trouble getting insurance to cover further facial feminization. So they have to like move to a new state and get a new job in order to afford their next surgery. Like their whole life has changed. And I'm just like, that is not a realistic view of yourself. Like you were already passing, like you were beautiful, you were feminine, you were like chilling, like you were fine. Nobody was like staring at you. Nobody thought you were like hanging out at all. Like she clearly just wants to like completely pass and like not have to tell anyone she's trans ever again, like go stealth. But she just thought she had to keep going, all these like risky medical things. And it really messed up her quality of life. Like, I hope she's doing better now, but like just watching that, and I like know a lot of other people do that. And it's like really sad, like when internally their self-perception is always like, I'm not good enough, I'm not done, you know, I need to keep going. Like they're putting their health at risk. Like some of these things are not safe.
Very serious procedures. Like we're talking about removing your face to tack
they like
off
shave your
bone.
It's
we're
so
talking about like these are very, and that's another thing that bothers me is the suppression of, you know, the conversations around side effects and the realities of these surgeries, the misinformation, the people who think they're going to wake up with a functioning vagina. Like we don't have that technology. Like, and a lot of people are getting hurt and being exploited for money, basically.
And then there's the pressure afterwards. It's really sad to watch people afterwards who are already public figures who have to like downplay, like, oh, I had complications. They have to say, but it's still great, you should still do it. And you can tell they're like upset, they're like affected by it, but they feel like they have to be like saying the right things. And I'm like, I feel so bad for them. Like their friends should be on their side saying like, let's talk about your complications and how we can avoid anyone else going through that. Not say like, don't talk about your complications, encourage everyone to do what you did and tell them they'll be fine. That's terrible.
I think they're just so protective of the trans identity and like this narrative that transition is the answer for trans people. And like you can become, and I mean, people always say we're not at this point, but we fucking are. I argue with people all the time about whether or not trans women are biological women. That's where we're at. Like, it's really that bad out there. Like, it's that loony and detached from reality. That people are coming up with these like wild, you know, windy roads in their mind to like somehow make woman a category that includes men and still is a meaningful category, you know, like
it's not good for society. It's not causing us to relate to one another better or function smoother like at all.
Exactly. And it's just annoying when like people constantly tell you like the only way you can have this view is if you're hateful. And it's like, I'm not really a super hateful person. Like and I've, you know, dated a trans person. I was engaged to a trans person. Like I've been like friends with many I've played in bands with trans people. Like the amount of exposure and relations I have to trans people is so like above average. But like I say one thing and my
it's like it doesn't count. It doesn't matter.
my only stance are really it's like the puberty blockers and some single sex spaces like prisons I have concerns about and sports I have concerns about. But it starts and ends at the legitimate impacts to women. I have I would love, like, I wish that, you know, if someone was distressed in their sex and they could push a button and become a different sex and actually be a different sex, okay. Like maybe we'll have that technology someday, but as of right now, we just literally don't, you know? So
Yeah.
if we're going to have female and woman be a meaningful category, it can't include men, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a lot.
So what
But-
was like, so we were at the point where you were desisting or started questioning things because of your friend who was like kind of pressuring you to go talk at that event of activity blockers.
Yeah.
So that was like the first kind of thing.
I desisted like early 2010s, but I stayed like believing all the same stuff for the world and everyone else until like a year ago.
Wow.
So like for me, I was like, well, the only like the thing that I added to my beliefs that made everything okay for me to not transition and not worry so much was like a female can be a woman and have like a large amount of masculine traits and a large amount of feminine traits and be like 100% a woman, totally fine. That's totally what a woman is. You don't have to be feminine to be a woman. You don't have to not be masculine to be a woman. Like 100% I can be a woman and have a lot of masculinity, and so can other people. And I started being like, you know, a male can be a man and have a lot of femininity. So that started to be like my favorite thing. Like if anyone really wanted to talk to me about gender, I would just be like, well, this is my favorite like belief. I think it's healthy. I hope it helps everyone, you know?
Yeah.
But I also was like, other people, like, I don't want to like push this on them and tell them like, don't identify as transgender. Like they're the masters of their own internal experience. Only they can tell me what they think and feel and what's best for them. So like they get to say, you know, whatever. So I was like putting myself like, you know, beneath like the whole ideology and being like the ideology, I still like, that's great, have that, you know? So I was just totally like queer and like trans adjacent, trans expansive. Sometimes I would still question my gender identity even like over the years and stuff. And I don't know. I was into like trans rights and stuff, but not into like a toxic level where I was like advocating for stuff that I hadn't looked into or whatever.
Yeah. I never went to that level either, because I've always strongly had this value that like any opinion is, I want to be able to explain it, because I have this fear of looking stupid, especially as a woman, like have insecurities of like how you represent other women, like, you know, so I always had that kind of like weird insecurity. But
no, it makes sense. It makes sense.
I'm like totally spaced out. But
you were advocating for trans rights as well, you said. Like you were
but I wasn't like I wouldn't have like gone and like done something I fully didn't believe in. My biggest crime that I feel for is I was a total bystander. I was a bystander. I didn't speak up as much as I should have in certain situations. I didn't speak up at all in certain situations. Sometimes I did, and I'm proud of how I handled it. Like some very controversial things I did have to, you know, deal with, and it ended up being fine, but it fractured some friend stuff. And it's just so much to like sort through. But it's really awesome talking to you, because it's like it can be a very isolating experience, because my whole social life for a long time was those communities, and it was so not okay to think these things. But I'm at a point where I have a couple close friends. I have an apartment, I have a job. Like I don't really have much to lose, you know, but I know people know who I am and accept me. So that's why I feel more comfortable saying things that I publicly wouldn't before, because I feel like I'm at a point where I can take some hits. And I also am just want to talk to other people and try to figure out where I do stand now that everything feels very in flux for me still. Like a lot of things, every issue is like in flux all of a sudden, because I feel like I've been misled, and I bought into ideology over facts. You know?
Yeah, I feel that way too, 100%. Like things that perspectives that I would never have been open to before. I hear someone say it and I'll be like, wait, could I believe that if I looked into it? Like I never really fully investigated. Do I agree? Could I agree? I don't know.
But that's an awesome place to be. It means I think that's where people should be. They should be able to interrogate freely and with other ideas, and even in their own mind, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's one like podcast YouTube channel that I would recommend that just a few days ago, even just one episode, I heard like multiple things from these people's mouths. They're like women who are on the left, but they're sort of heterodox free thinking now. It's like Megan Dom, and I think her name is Sarah Hayter, I think, and it's A Special Place in Hell. And then Megan Dom also does like The Unspeakable. Megan Dom also does The Unspeakable, and on both of those, they try to just be able to like actually be free of ideology and say all their stuff. But they're still like women who are on the left. Like they're not going to like.
That's what I want. I want to connect with. I want to connect with other people doing that and kind of like create more of a norm of it being okay to really interrogate views, to have heterodox opinions, you know, and still be able, like, you should be able to highly disagree with someone and still see their humanity and still see that they're not evil and trying to kill you. And like, I'm at a point where I want to be part of like more bipartisan solutions instead of promoting this ideological deadlock that we're stuck in. Like it's getting us nowhere. We live in a country that's divided, and I want, you know, that's why I talk to people from all different kinds of perspectives to try to, well, help me figure out which one I truly believe in. Yeah. And also it's just, you know, I'm curious about people. So
yeah. So on that topic, for me, like Marxism actually helped me like release myself from gender identity ideology, because like Marxist feminists, I would hear them talk about like the material conditions of like having a female body and the historical like impacts like over time that different women have lived through, like this condition, that condition, like how were societies then, how have they changed, like how do we have the situation we have now, how do we have the rights we have now, why are we treated these ways, like so like for me, like I can still be a Marxist and not be like, oh, there are like gendered souls that need to be like expressed through medicalization, you know, like
right. Like no one should feel. Something I value a lot, and I can tell you do, is honesty. I value honesty and being honest to people. I think it's a way of showing respect to someone. Yeah. Like if I don't respect you and just think you're silly and crazy, I'm not going to really engage with you. But if I care about what you think, I will share my honest opinion, you know.
It needs to be safer to like admit the things that it feels scary to say we believe. Like because telling the truth about what we believe is how we're going to learn how to like interact with each other better and learn more and discuss more. And,
that's why I've been doing all this like AGP content, like because it just feels like no one really wants to touch it, like because it's such an issue with gender critical feminists. Hate them, that, you know, everyone hates the AGP, the TRA doesn't exist. And like I think it's so important, like what Ray's doing, I hugely admire, like because it's not a popular route to go, and it's so fucking funny, the grifter accusations.
Oh my god,
either to Ray or to me. I've been demonetized since day one, bitch. I don't make shit.
Almost no YouTubers make any money.
I buy a better microphone.
Like even if you make a little tiny bit of money in a month on YouTube, like you're just trying to recoup the amount you spent on like your microphone and your lights and your camera. Like it's like first you shelled out in order to be able to put content out, and then you hope you might get some of that back over time. Like
I'm still trying to get my channel remonetized. Not that I ever made a lot. I have like one video that was popular. I made like $1,000 from like the ads on it, but that's about it. Like it was just like a flick random video. I have like one video that was like really popular, but
dang, nice. Yeah. Well, so you're completely demonetized? Like everything you do? Oh my gosh. And how
I have a Patreon, I think, with one person on it, but
how does that get changed? Like how does your YouTube channel?
I reapplied recently, and then they denied it, and they said I have to like make a video explaining my content, and I have like a deadline in June, and I will procrastinate till the last minute probably. But
that's interesting
because I get a lot of reports because I talk about drugs. Like where it's like fentanyl.
Yeah.
Basically everything I talk about is like a trigger on YouTube. Like
and all those words that you're supposed to not say or whatever.
Yeah. And just talking about drugs, period. A lot of people in recovery are penalized on fucking YouTube. demonetized, shadow banned, because they don't have the fucking capacity for some reason to tell the difference between someone. I get accused of selling drugs. That was like one of my complaints, or that I was flagged for, like, promotion.
You're
of
literally
drugs.
being like, I hope you can get off of drugs, and here's how I did it. Like,
yeah, it's so annoying. But they just hear fentanyl, and also, like, yeah, you could probably show a clip of me like joking and seeming like whatever, you know. So I don't know. It's so freaking annoying.
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
insane.
Yeah, I watched one of your videos about like how you managed that process of getting off of fentanyl, like physically, like what you had to go through and everything, and like that sounded so intense. You said like you had tried like rehabs, and it ended up you kind of had to white knuckle it and have a friend like hold you accountable until your body was able to like stand.
Pretty much, yeah, because I had done rehabs, and the ones that my insurance covers are similar to jail. They're horrific places to be. And when you're extremely sick, like, one of the things is you smell everything times 1,000. And anytime in those shitty state-funded detoxes, I just smell human shit and waste the whole fucking time. So, and I've only been to like one really nice rehab, and it was like $50,000, like insane. And that was actually a positive experience. Unfortunately, I didn't have a good aftercare plan. There were still drugs in my room. It was just stupid. Like, it was like, so I didn't want to waste that money and then relapse again. I just could not do that to my family. I couldn't. Yeah. So I got fired, and I was like, all right, I've got a couple weeks. Either I'm gonna just go cam and make some porn money, and like just go full in, or go fuck my drug dealer. Like, what's the next move here? It's something bad. It's either like stop, try to just rip the fucking Band-Aid off, because it just got so unmanageable. And so I stockpiled a little methadone and went to a friend's house, and then I went to my mom's house and went fully psychotic, got arrested, ended up in the psych ward just from the lack of sleep. For 9 days, I think I slept like 20 minutes, you know, like,
because your body, like your chemistry is like way off from what it was.
I was taking like 3 grams of fentanyl a day, which is enough to like kill a fucking elephant, on top of tons of other medication. Like, so to rip that off your body, it produces as much suffering as you can experience. Like, it just produces as much as you can fathom experiencing pain. It just gives it all to you.
Wow.
It's a terrible. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. I'm curious to hear. I know. So we've been going for like an hour, and I literally could talk to you forever. But I do want to talk about what it was like for you and Ray going through that transition, because you married him as a trans woman.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like for you? And you're still married. That's such a. I mean, it's awesome that, you know, you guys have been able to be such a great team together, you know, and like get through that. Like, but what was that like for you?
So first I started like looking into all this stuff, like I said, like listening to Gender Wider Lens. And then at some point, like, so we already have this, like, we're both really intellectual. We just love to talk about like some sort of intellectual conversation for like hours, maybe. And that like makes me feel a lot of love towards him and feel really connected. Like that's like our love language.
That's my love language too, is like arguing about politics, or like just like going way deep into some weird shit. Like,
like, what are your thoughts on blah blah blah? Like, I don't know. I've never considered it. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
But so we already had that relationship, and we had always tried to make it as safe as possible between the two of us to say, like, you know, I think I believe this, or like I'm questioning this, or I wonder this question, even if like outside of the room where we are, like our friends or anyone else would look at us and be like, you can't say that, that's terrible. So we
you guys have
like,
each other at least to like bounce ideas off
try to make it like the safest space for that. So we already were like that. And so when I was doing this I did read Detransition Baby. It was a fun book. I got through it really fast, but I don't know if it really.
That's one of my IRL friends who I wish would come on stream sometime, bitch.
But yeah, we already had that safety, and so when I was like, I was pretty scared to start questioning the gender stuff, because like he was a trans feminine person and I was married to him, and like all my friends are like completely into like all this gender stuff. And but I started kind of telling him like pretty early on when I was doing it, because that's like the safe space. We're supposed to be able to tell each other. But I also was like, I don't really want to oh, is this about you? Is that about you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I just click the random comments to pull them up sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, I was able to tell him pretty early on, like, I'm going to look this stuff up, and I'm getting an open mind about, like, maybe I don't feel the same way I thought I felt about gender. And like I was scared. It was scary to tell him, but it's like we're supposed to be able to. So I did it, and he was like, "Okay, like, how do you want to navigate that?" And I was like, "I think I'm going to be pretty private about it for now, and I might just tell you something here or there, send you something here or there. And eventually I would be like, do you want to watch this thing with me?" And like we wouldn't even talk about the thing. And like eventually we started being like, so what did you think of that thing? And like asking questions to each other. And he started watching things privately too, because his curiosity got piqued.
Yeah.
So, and then eventually we started really having more conversations and really opening up to like, I have this new viewpoint. I think I agree with it, this new viewpoint instead of my old one. And yeah, we really just like transformed together. Like we're not like the same as each other,
like that, because that could have gone and so many different ways. But
yeah,
that really speaks to like the testament that you found someone who you connect with beyond all that other life shit, you know. And that's so important in life, you know, no matter how that relationship evolves over time. It's like, you know, it's so important to have people in your life like that who just care and know you for you. So if someone says you're a white supremacist, they're not just gonna be like, all right, shunned, you know. It's like, what the hell? You know? So, did you worry like about your attraction changing? Because you said you're primarily attracted, or like you're bi, but like, do you feel like you have a more your preferences towards females generally?
I am going through trying to like piece together all of that right now, because part of being so like woke for so long and thinking that like we all have like genders inside of our bodies that are more important than our bodies and all that for like ever since I was like a teenager until like now, like well into adulthood, like I pretty much like, even though I was attracted to like women or like feminine people, I pretty much was just like, well, you know, everyone's gender expression could change at any point. Like they might not even be expressing in the way that feels best for them now. Like I could be in a relationship and they could like come out as like a different like gender and like change their expression. Like I still should love that person as the same person. Like they didn't change themselves. So I was like, well, that makes sense. I should be pansexual, so I'm the most safe space for everyone to be able to express themselves however they want and feel just like inherently loved as who they are. But then now here I'm finally like free of like that sort of influence, and I'm being like, am I like legitimately fully attracted to like male-bodied masculine people who are running on like their natural testosterone hormones, or am I like almost entirely gay? Like am I as bisexual or pansexual as I thought? So it's like a whole thing. Like I'm still working through it, and it's like
I feel that too.
Ray is like a trooper. He's just chilling. Like he just detransitioned from being on all this estrogen and like barely any testosterone and being like feminine, like all that stuff.
That's still like pretty new for you guys, right? It's all in this past year that all these changes. Right?
Yeah. And he's just like letting me go through and try and figure that out and being like, okay, like he's not acting
like that. Like it's an awakening. It happens like kind of things can change quickly. And I think for the better, it feels like you're moving towards truth. You're moving towards seeing people for full humans while engaging and disagreeing. Like,
because I think like I fell in love with this person who I thought had like the internal gender identity of being a woman, and so like essentially was like a woman like through and through, and like was completely on estrogen, like soft skin, like estrogenized like psychology, like not testosterone telling him to do stuff, but like estrogen like affecting the psychology and the motivations. And like I think like smell different, like different pheromones, which is supposed to be a huge thing when you're falling in love. So I fell in love with like this totally feminine version of this person. And now it's like testosterone motivating the psychology, which he's dealing with super well. Like he didn't have like a period of time where he was like a monster or anything. Like he didn't like struggle with like ups and downs.
I can't even imagine that. Like,
it's like intense. It's like now he like is like, oh my god, like male sexuality and female sexuality are so different, and he's like,
they literally are. Like people need to get fucking
like,
real.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. Is like, I feel like I sound like so like biologically essentialist, but like I kind of fucking am, and like
it's real. Like a lot of it's real.
It's real. Like I am very much influenced by my biology in many ways. Like, and that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm like at the mercy of it, but we should all be able to like say that like, yeah, it's a fact women like have different broadly different sexual behaviors spectrum, but like it's a very different for like, and as someone who's been like in the sex industry, like I know it's different. The way I never had female customers ever.
Wow.
Like unless they were with a man. Like it's
so
entirely fucking different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like struggles that men and male men. Like, what words do people want me to use?
Biologically male men.
Yeah. Struggles that they have based on like the testosterone coursing through their veins, I think are real. Like struggles that they have trying to like control impulses, sexual impulses, like that's real. And
there's no empathy for that at all, especially like women don't really, and it's understandable why we're sensitive, because every woman I know has been assaulted to some degree, you know, raped,
harassed,
stalker. That's just the background noise of being a woman, you know, like what? Yeah, like fuck, I forgot where I was getting with that. Sorry, my brain's like
male sexuality.
Oh yeah. I think we should have more sympathy for that experience and how intense that is, because women, we can be very like, we're more sexually moral, like la-di-da, look at our crime rates. And it's like, we have entirely different physiological things driving us. And I've like kind of experienced it like by being on drugs that increase my sex drive. It made me like relate to like being a guy and just like watching porn for like 12 fucking hours and like just getting fucked up, like really into that world. Like, but that's so awesome that, you know, you've been handling it all. And
he's been really like handling it really well, and he's very like self-aware, and he listens to all these other people. Like he'll go on Twitter and like listen to the feminists, like the rad femmes, like he'll read what they have to say and try to be like, that's like a female person talking about their experience as a woman, and I want to like realize that they have something to say, and he'll try to take it in. And sometimes I think I like assist in that process, and he listens to me too, and it makes me feel really good. But so like, even though I fell in love with him as like this feminine person that was like different in some ways, like I'm already essentially like deeply in love with this person. So like at this point, like, does the change in like physiology, biology, like will that impact us? Is that a huge deal? Like it might impact like our sex lives, our sexual behavior. Maybe my sexual orientation might be mostly towards like feminine people or females or something, like some combination of that. But like, I don't know, like romantically, like I already have romantic feelings. Like I don't think I'm gonna just lose those. So it's like, it's so complicated. Like
it literally is. Like I don't know how I struggle just day to day with my brain. Like, cause I can't even imagine unpacking like with these. It's just a lot to process, a lot to reflect on. Like, and broadly, it seems positive. Like, do you feel like invigorated? Like, how does it feel to be like saying stuff like publicly?
It feels so good and interesting. Like I hope I help other people, but at the same time I'm still trying to figure myself out and like proceed through my life and what is going on, like what I'm going through, and help him do that too, because he's AGP, and so he's trying to figure out how to incorporate like his desire to be feminine. Like should it be in erotic situations? Should it be like complete cross-dressing? Should it be like just like incorporating a little bit of femininity, like painting nails and doing makeup and like wearing whatever clothes he wants, like masculine clothes? And like, does that feel good? Like what feels good for him and what's healthy for him, for everyone else, for me? Like, you know,
that sounds like a really good approach though. Like,
because like we read all those like tweets and listen to the videos and the podcasts where you know, women are understandably, or other people too, are understandably upset about AGP's behavior in society, because the ones that we know are AGP are the ones who transgressed some boundary and did something bad.
It's so hard to talk about, but that there is that pattern of like, it does seem like every Redux fucking person is that
an AGP,
like, that subtype, you know?
So he's
just
like,
unfortunate that that's the only representation, because I imagine most people aren't like that. But there's just no space. That's why I think what Ray's doing is so important, especially to just show processing it, like to depict the process, to show that there's a way to live with this that can be healthy, honest, reality-based, respectful. Like, I think it's really good that he's navigating that like publicly. You know, so like, people have a point of reference.
I think his moral character is just like impressing me more and more every day. Like, I don't think that he fits, like, when people are criticizing AGPs for being self-centered or narcissistic, I'm like 100% confident that they're not talking about him, because that's not him at all. So
I talked to someone who was convinced that, like, actually a couple people are convinced he's lying about the whole thing, that or like exaggerating, like he was never a trans woman. People literally believe this, and it's like, I don't know, like, people can deceive you, but from talking with Ray, I just didn't. He seemed so genuine, so forthcoming. It's like, I just didn't get that vibe at all, you know. And then following you, and it's like, it would be such a ridiculous, non-lucrative, like, what? It doesn't make sense. Like, but they can't let like,
no, he had a big following. Like, his screen name was Trans Philosopher, all one word, and he had big following, and he has a public book, and on the back of it he looks super pretty as a woman.
I know, it's all kind of, there's plenty of verifiable proof, and everything he's saying, all these very specific things about that experience are all very ring true, very verifiable. So it's like,
I think
so it's like, I don't believe that at all. Like,
at all. Like, it's, people will just use the blanket term AGP, but you can get more specific. There's like subtypes of AGP. Like, what are the motivations or desires for that male? Like, do they want the anatomy? Do they want like the social experience of being treated as a woman? Do they want to wear the clothes? Like, all these different things. And so his is a lot based around the clothing, but not entirely. Like, he will think about like his body or how he's being perceived or treated as well. Like, a lot of it. So, but other people are more focused on different aspects. And then there's like co-occurring things, like, is someone like really submissive, or do they have other kinks that go along with their AGP? And then also, like, are they autistic? Do they have other like psychological stuff going on? So it's like, you know, you're not just AGP, and then you're all, the AGPs are all the same exactly, like, psychologically.
Yeah, there should be like definitely more terminology to help people navigate that space, you know, like, and differentiate between those different kinds of experiences. Because I view it like, it's a spectrum, and people can handle it how they want. I'm still trying to figure out if I think transition, like, I mean, I would support if someone truly is living a happier, more fulfilled life after medical transition, then I fully support that, you know.
I think
it's just about like, I don't know what the evidence is pointing to. I don't know if the evidence is even existing. Like, there's just so much unknown for me, and I'm trying to be comfortable, like, saying that I'm not positive about certain things. Like, you know, I'm
so for some males who have like a high sex drive that they're struggling with, once they go on the estrogen and suppress their testosterone, they stop having to struggle with that so much. And some of them don't like having that high sex drive. It'll distract them. Like,
it can be a nuisance if it's not being fulfilled in any way.
So sometimes they go on the estrogen and suppress their testosterone, and they're like, wow, like, I'm calmer.
That's like what I do with methadone, because methadone, like, methadone guys on methadone can't get erections. It obliterates your testosterone.
Wow.
And it has that effect on women too. So like I've been on methadone and I was on a higher dose. And as I go down, like my sex drive comes back, more aspects of like, I feel more like invigorated instead of like zombie-ish, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I kind of like manipulate the dose too a little bit, you know? It's probably not good, but I relate to that shifting of experiences of different levels of sexual.
Yeah. So there are so many side effects. I think the informed consent process needs to be emphasized a ton more. And any sort of like interactions, like Ray smoked cigarettes and they put him on an estrogen pill. That is like a huge risk for like blood clots and all that type of stuff. He ended up getting the effects of that. He went to the hospital, and I'm not gonna cry. I am gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. But he almost died before I met him. Like the month or two before I met him, he almost died from his estrogen.
Holy shit. Oh, I think
just the estrogen. It wasn't like a surgery or anything. He had pancreatitis, which is extremely elevated triglycerides. And it was not from drinking, which is the normal type of pancreatitis. It was from the estrogen. It might have been one other medicine he was on, also interacting with the estrogen, and any smoking he was doing, also interacting with the estrogen. But the doctors knew he smoked. They knew what medicine he took, and they put him on the estrogen, and they didn't check every time he came in, like, hey, I'm going to check your triglycerides, and hey, have you been smoking? You should stop. They didn't do that. They didn't, like, put it in his head, like, this smoking is an extreme risk. Like, it's that seems not so that informed. Like, even if they maybe mentioned it once or something, they could cover their butt legally. Maybe he signed something or read something at the beginning, but he was like an AGP who was like, I'm cross-dressing full-time. I feel like society looks at me so weird because I'm a clearly masculine male in like feminine clothing, and I can't live like this. And so he was like, give me the damn estrogen, you know?
Yeah.
So if they said like, do you smoke? You should stop smoking. He was probably like, yeah, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Like he probably didn't not listen, but like, you know, years and years into it, they're still not emphasizing like what risks he has on the estrogen. And he went to the hospital and almost died. He had pancreatitis, and then while in the hospital, he had a pulmonary embolism that they almost didn't catch. And if they had released him from the hospital, he would have died somewhere if they didn't catch it before they released him.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's so messed up. And that's the kind of risk that these medical things, not even just the surgeries, but just the hormones.
Medical things like for aesthetics only.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a treatment that's treating, it's all for aesthetics. And I guess there is that mental change too, but like people primarily seem to just want it so they look different. Like it's that doesn't seem like a good reason to like accrue all of those risks. Like
it's partly a symptom of the culture not allowing so much freedom for gender nonconformity. Because like
that's a huge,
I think
that's the end game is that like everyone is whatever sex and can express in any way.
Yeah, I think he would have stuck with no medicalization and just wearing like soft feminine clothing that he really enjoyed, and like walking around with maybe like long hair and makeup and like a dress or a skirt or something that he really felt like the fabric is nice, the way it lays on my body is nice, I love this is so fun. Like he probably would have stuck with that, but everyone was being like, what a weirdo. You know, like
exactly. Especially as a man, there isn't. They are kind of forced. Like if you are gender non-conforming, it's like, all right, I guess I have to go full trans woman. Yeah, if I want to like find a place in this world, like. And
then online on like Reddit and in therapy sessions, like his therapist was like, "You're probably like Caitlyn Jenner. You should go watch her interview." And then like, like you should transition. Basically, was what the therapist basically planted that seed. And then he went on Reddit in like some different trans groups, being like, does this make me like a transgender woman or not? And everyone was like, yes it does, yes it does, yes it does, you have to transition. Like and so he was like, well, I fit the exact definition, I've been validated by everyone I've asked, the therapist referred me to Caitlyn Jenner as a role model for my life, like I need to and I'm being treated weird if I like wear this stuff, which I feel I need to wear. I can't suppress this anymore. I have to like give into it because suppressing it is messing up. So he's just like, okay, I'll do it. So so it is partly culturally mediated, or like pressure from people. Like anyone who says that there's no social contagion, or like the way we talk about it isn't having an impact on people, is like
People
totally
are so
delusional.
influential. Like people are so impressionable. It's been a big thing for me to admit that to myself, because I always valued myself as like a free thinker and like blah blah blah. But like I am
Yeah.
impressionable. I
Yeah.
am, if I think someone's smart and saying things make sense, I'm more likely to adopt those views. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's just how humans are, you know? Like, so we should all have that awareness that we're always like nudging each other in different like directions.
Yeah,
with
for
different
sure.
outcomes. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, speaking of nudging each other in directions, I don't have any friends who question gender identity ideology at all from beforehand in my life.
wow.
Everyone is still 100%. Like, one of them was telling me like how trans people are like murdered all the time. And I was just like,
What?
I think
Oh,
that
is that lower
focusing,
than the like male homicide
I
rate?
know.
Like,
I know. I was like, first of all, I don't think that that's like really an accurate perception, but like we could go through like numbers and researching
it's
that
so
later.
few.
But I was also like, I think focusing on that when you're not actually running across it in your personal life, you don't know anyone else who's run across it, like focusing on that is messing up your psychology. Like you're getting more upset than you need to.
Literally.
Like I was like, who was murdered? And the person was like, and I was like, okay, how many trans friends do you have? And they're like, all my friends, basically. And I was like, so how many of them were violently attacked ever? Like they were like, I was like, right? Like I've had trans friends for like 15, 20 years. Like I don't know that many that have had like harrowing, violent encounters. Like most people are treated okay-ish day to day, at least.
Yeah, in the West, like, you know, we're fucking like in America, like even the poorest people, like I'm a waitress and I live like a fucking queen compared to like so much of the world.
Yeah,
I feel very fortunate. I have like cigarettes, I have a laptop, I have toothfish, like
gotta appreciate it. Man. Yeah, gotta appreciate it, the freedoms that we do have. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, so it's, and there's so many people, like I think that's one of the least healthy parts about it, is like thinking like either I or my friends or like these oppressed people are like being violently attacked, like everything's not fair, like you know,
that's what I felt, just like as a woman.
Yeah.
I internalized that kind of view of like,
yeah,
and it increases anxiety, and it
yeah.
makes you all these minor interactions and little things, like anyone just being an asshole. Like people are assholes to me all day, every day. But if I was trans, I might be like, oh, it's because I'm trans. They're transphobic, you know, but it's no, they'd be an asshole to you no matter what. It's because I'm a waitress. Like,
yeah. So, yeah, it's like, that leads to the person feeling like fight or flight. Like when you're in your fight or flight nervous system, you're not in your logical brain. You can't just be like, oh, I'll listen calmly and consider your point. So she's in fight or flight. She's like, you're talking about trans people in a way that feels unsafe to me because trans people are being attacked and murdered. And so she can't calm down and listen to like why I would say something.
Yeah, also they hype each other up by like everyone being like, this is an unsafe thing. She was so unsafe. Like the unsafety is all around us. And it's like, they create pain. They create suffering in trans people. These activists are hurting trans people more than any fucking other person. Yeah. You know?
100%.
And if it's not like hyping them up like that, it's literally shunning them for having the most minor disagreement. Yeah. Like, or the most minor infraction. It's so crazy, these standards. Like,
yeah. So I think it's a whole like social and psychological phenomenon that's screwing people up and making them struggle more so than it is like the actual like encountering someone on the street who's actually gonna do something to you.
I fully agree. I fully agree. And it's like
crazy to say that, but I think based on my like 20 years of experience and like trying to absorb all the information I can over the last year, like fairly obsessively, like I'm pretty sure.
I'm literally just nonstop, like consuming every video, reading every, you know, and like constantly consuming information on the topic, like it's insatiable.
Yeah, like there are far right or other people who are actually hateful about trans people, but they still aren't usually violent.
Yeah, exactly. I know
Like,
you don't
even
really.
then.
It's not a thing. I mean, I don't want to downplay people.
Yeah.
Is it like, I know, like, if you are a gender nonconforming male, there, like, I know people who are somewhat gender nonconforming and have had like bottles thrown at them and like, cars like pull up and do shit like that. But it's like, those things happen, and what we need to encourage is people. It's like when a baby hits its head, how much you react to it. Like, how you react creates the suffering.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah,
you're like,
like being
oh,
more
baby,
resilient.
Yeah,
We need to be more resilient. Like, we need to
we're not gonna make it.
We need to be telling gender nonconforming and trans and queer and LGBT people, like, you're resilient. You're going to be okay. Like, even if they are going to encounter some harrowing, violent, or hateful situation, like, you know what? Like, this is how you deal with it. You do this. Like, you're in control of your body and your life, and I believe in you, and like, you got this. You're empowered, and like,
that's what people need. They need true empowerment, and that's something I found in myself, like when I stopped just perceiving myself as like this victim who the world was doing things to, and instead took responsibility, and like, that's actually empowering. And I found a lot more like inner peace and just like not constantly psyching myself out with this shit and feeling like I have control. It's just a better way to live. And it's the only fucking way to live, because I can believe that things are unfair. I can make efforts to make them less unfair, but I still have to live my life, and I still have to do what I need to do to get through the day, like.
And being in that fight or flight nervous system, I've learned, because I'm chronically ill,
make you get chronically sick.
It makes you literally physically sick, and anything you have, it'll make it worse. Like, getting out of my fight or flight nervous system has transformed my life. And that's another thing that made me and Ray like a strong couple, is he provided the circumstances and the relationship that I could get out of my fight or flight nervous system, and I could be calm and feel safe. So like, my health is going to improve, like my mental health, my physical health,
it's
like
the upward spiral.
So like, that is super important. Like, you can't really consider other perspectives very easily when you're not in your logical part of your brain. You're in your like fear-based amygdala, fight or flight. And there's also fight or flight, fawn or freeze. So we don't always recognize we're doing it, because some of us don't fight and we don't flee. We freeze up, or we start going like, oh, is there anything I can do for you? I'm going to appease you. I'm going to make you feel better so that you're not threatening to me. And like, no one recognizes that as a fight or flight, because they don't know about it. When I learned about that, I was like, oh my God, I understand myself now. So that's a huge thing for me, is like, if we can get out of that like fear-based response and into our logical brain, we need safety and security to feel that way. We need to feel empowered. We need to be told we're resilient and we can handle things. And then we can start thinking like, do I believe these things? Is there nuance? Am I behaving in a way that's helpful to all people? Like,
it's just like people, I have faith that people can break through, because it's like, once you, it does feel like, all the like Matrix, red pill, blue pill. It's like, all the like pills, like, like, whatever. All that shit is kind of like stupid, but it does feel like people are having some kind of awakening, hopefully. And I want to encourage it. Of people, like, I've been following, do you follow Brianna Wu on Twitter? She's been like on fire lately. Just like, she's over the bullshit. Like, she's just like calling out the left so hard, and like, and just saying like, we just have to sidestep these people and work together and hope they come around in some ways, still reach out to them as humans. But like, so far as for political causes, we might, just have to work around it instead of constantly trying to appease and like mold things to fit this ever-changing narrative of like how things should be. Like, it's just not feasible. Like,
I'm just really glad that I already knew about communism, talking about like material conditions and stuff before I went through this transformation, so that I don't have to feel so like, oh, like I have no political home, or like I'm leaving the left, like I need new opinions, like or whatever. Like, I don't have to feel like I'm being pulled away from my actual beliefs, because I'm like, no, like
you're not. It's like you're being pulled closer to alignment, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I can
closer
stay
to reality.
the same. Yeah.
That's so important.
You like to be like a true classical Marxist. I think you need to not be focusing on like identity politics and wokeness. Like I think you need to be focusing on material reality.
Yeah.
Like, so
it's unfortunate Marxist is like, unfortunately to the broader public, just means SJW crazy. Like it has all these like connotations, but there's some really valuable theory and ways of analyzing your place in society that I found incredibly useful from like Marxist theory. And I'm still, as of right now, I don't know what economic system I think would be best for the United States, just because we're so big. I just like, I don't even know. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. But I do know I want like stronger, more comprehensive social safety nets that have some process to get out that isn't like, because for me, anytime I go above poverty, I'm penalized. Oop, there goes the health insurance.
I went through that
food stamps.
Like it was like you had to make a certain amount of money and not less to be on Obamacare. And then when Medicaid started in my state, it was like you had to make a certain amount of money and not more to be on Medicaid. And it was like so confusing. Like you have to do this, you have to do that with your like amount of money in order to get your health insurance. I was like,
it's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. Craziness. Yeah. But I do think that capitalism like causes people to act like in worse ways than we would otherwise, like greediness and stuff, like unethical behavior. So I do think that capitalism is bad, at least as it is right now. I don't know if there's any way to change it, or if it's like,
it's like, what is that? Because if we were a smaller country like Denmark or something, or like one of those places that they can really have these like more socialist policies, like, but once they're in such a huge country and there's just so many different environments and needs, I just can't even,
like, we're the home of like the biggest freaking companies. Like, how would we function without like, you know, like IBM, CVS, GE, like those giant freaking companies? Like, how would we make a transformation from that to like, you know, like it's all like mind-boggling. Like I just mostly use my like knowledge of communism to like analyze things and say like these are definitely problems. Like I can see the problems and I think I can see some causes of the problems. Do I know exactly how to solve them? Exactly what changes? Not necessarily. No. Maybe someone else can help me, you know, figure it out.
Exactly. But the start of action, you know, what precedes it is thought and ideas. Yeah. You know, definitely. And then the next step is vocalizing it. We've taken that step. And then the next step is ideally some kind of meaningful action in the world, you know? Yeah. Ideally, not just hopefully I'm not just shouting into the void for no reason.
We gotta get more people who are able to talk like freely, like without being scared that all their friends will hate them and they'll like lose all their like stability in their life and stuff. Like it's like, oh God, like come on.
Literally, I really want to like encourage that norm and like try to like connect with other people who are like-minded so that we can like just encourage that to be like a new norm. And I've talked to people who I wouldn't even necessarily expect to agree with me, and like once you really like talk to them like in a real sincere like genuine like private conversation, you'll find that like they have similar concerns about like what's going on and the impact of like identity politics on the left and how it's just gotten to such a psycho place, you know, from where it was supposed to start. And like
yeah, I'm nervous to talk to any of my like main friends from before. Like I've kind of isolated myself because like I'm waiting for like the dam to break and like everyone to be like, I hate you.
I was waiting for this too. I've told a couple friends about my channel and like broadly they've been receptive, I think, because they know me and just know that like I'm being genuine, you know, and even if they disagree, like it just so happens that I do have these beliefs. I can't help what I believe. I don't choose it. Like,
you're being honest and you're not trying to tell other people like you can't believe what you believe. You're trying to be like, all right, tell me what you believe. Like, let's talk.
Yeah,
like
that's the goal. It's like to just encourage a norm of talking about these things in a really honest way. That's
for sure.
Right now we're at a really bad point in discourse. You know, everyone always says that forever, but I don't know, it feels really bad. Like,
yeah, no, for sure. And you and I came from like the center of that, like the
yeah,
center of
literally
the
like the
storm.
nucleus of this psychosis was like
Yes.
my coming into adulthood was my whole 20s, you
Yeah,
know.
me too. Me
It
too.
wasn't until like the pandemic really, you know, stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped playing shows, and you know, I just hang out with a couple of friends. And I'm getting older too. As you get older,
Mhm.
like your priorities change. I don't need to party every night, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Shit
Yeah.
like that, you know.
Oh,
But
well, was there more we wanted to cover? Or?
I think we covered a lot. I thought that was an awesome conversation. So thank you so much. And you need to make do you have a channel or anything? I forget if you said.
I want to start putting videos up. I have like a screen name for my YouTube. Like I go on it and watch videos on it, but I haven't put anything up yet. So yeah,
All right, well, stay tuned.
I tweet right now. I tweet.
Oh
that's
yeah,
all
shout
I
out your Twitter. It's just Jules Louise.
Jules G's
I'll
Louise.
I'll put a link in like the bio and stuff.
Yeah,
you can follow it because you've been awesome on Twitter.
I think I made my YouTube and my Twitter handle like match each other. I think they're both Jules G's Louise, like Jules like Jules, G's Geez, and then Louise. I think they're both the same. Jules G's Louise.
Awesome. Well, everyone follow Jules. She's been an awesome guest, and I would love to have you back on again. Because there's just so many different levels we can look at this. And
oh my god, yeah. And if my life or your life like change in the next like 2-3 months, we'll have to like come back and be like, how did it change? Like, what did we
literally? Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. So,
yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna end the stream.
All right, cool.
So I'll be backstage.